biofuel has the potential for having an immediate impact.
One of the reasons we're excited about biofuels is rather than just an efficiency gain, it could actually help reduce our absolute emissions.
We really have to have what amounts to a clean energy revolution, a full transition from fossil fuels to clean, efficient energy systems.
Aviation has a really important role to play, not only because it's part of the global warming problem, but also it can be part of the global warming solution.
We're very excited about a new avenue, a new technology that we could use as a fuel for our aircraft.
We need companies to show the industry as a whole that it's not all academic.
Boeing's role in this is to drive the market viability of sustainable biofuels for aviation.
Biofuels, very simply, are fuels from plant matter, basically. What distinguishes biofuels, I think that's important, is that they're not fossil fuels.
We've got a terrible addiction to oil in our country, and we use over 21 million barrels a day. The aviation sector is a part of that.
Because we've become so reliant on those fossil fuels, we're experiencing more drain on our economy because most of those fossil fuels we're importing. And we're dumping carbon that's been stored in the Earth's crust for hundreds of millions of years into the atmosphere where it's rapidly heating up the planet.
Biofuels will be able to be used in airplanes without any modifications to the airplane or the engine or the fueling infrastructure that leads to the airplane.
The drop-in biofuel is really important because we can't really redesign aircraft. There's many flying around in the world right now. So you have to find a solution that existing aircraft can use.
A sustainable biofuel that consumes as much CO2 as it produces when it's used can help us create a carbon neutral industry.
It's very important to distinguish between sustainable biofuels and unsustainable biofuels, between biofuels that actually solve those problems of carbon building up in the atmosphere and petroleum dependence, and biofuels that don't, and they're not all equal in that sense. As a general rule, it's important to be moving toward biofuels that don't compete with food production.
When they compete with food, you start to motivate people to cut down rainforest and to plant crops because commodities prices increase. And that is what is going to cause more greenhouse gases than your original fuel.
You have to look at a fuel from how it's produced, with what kind of energy inputs, with what kind of impacts on the land, all the way through to combustion.
Most of the biofuel that is commercially produced, I would say, is relatively unsustainable. That's part of the pathway to sustainable biofuels. It's a step on the way, but if it's the last step, then we didn't really solve the problem.
Everything we're doing now can be viewed as early evolutionary steps as we work through this. Ultimately, the right solution will be found. It's all part of the technology that has always been part of this industry.
What we find so encouraging is that pioneers like Boeing are really turning their investment and their innovative talent into opening up those pathways.
Boeing has been listening very carefully to those that are developing biofuel projects, the financial community that funds biofuel projects, non-governmental organizations that want it to be done sustainably. What we've heard from all of them is they see us being very effective in playing an enabling role to help accelerate the viability of these solutions.
In our pursuit of a biofuel answer, we began with laboratory research. Is it possible to formulate a fuel substitute? We then began on a very cautious test program on carriers like Virgin. We're also doing our own in-house research, testing these fuels in non-flying assets. All those are important building block steps that we take as we do in any new technology.
Virgin Atlantic was the first airline to perform a biofuel flight test, and Air New Zealand will also be performing a flight test, and Continental will be the third airline to perform a flight test, and the idea is to show progressive improvement in the biofuels that we're using, that they're more environmentally sensitive and sustainable. So we start with the first generation biofuel, getting to a second and third generation biofuel.
Well, when we did our biofuel demo flight back in February this year, there wasn't a lot of availability of biofuels suitable for aviation out there, but increasingly as we went through the process there were more and more options and more fuels that were achieving these very specific qualifications that you need to get for a biofuel.
With these flight tests, the goal is to show the public that this is a viable solution.
Yeah, it's very exciting. We all knew it would work. but actually flying it, demonstrating it, getting the publicity around it, which helps energize an industry to find solutions, is great.
Because carriers have been so interested in sustainable biofuels, we're quickly transitioning from proving feasibility to actually implementing commercial use. You will see many carriers likely committing to use of sustainable biofuels in the near term.
When we actually look at the solutions, it's going to make us a stronger society. It's going to make industry more competitive looking into the future.
Research is progressing much faster than we expected. So I think we'll be able to fly on a percentage of biofuel in the next 5 to 10 years.
The government can be doing more to help industry develop these. And by that, I mean taking the risk out with incentives.
I think the excitement about biofuel today is not unlike when Kennedy indicated within a decade we would put a man on the moon. We didn't know how to do that then. We don't know how to do this now. But I know because we've created the energy around the importance of finding a renewable fuel source for the airline and aircraft industry, we'll do it. We'll do it just like we did then. It captures the imagination of young people and the creativity of mankind, and that is our genius in this world.